Like it or not, The Last of Us is one of the most popular games ever made. Period. Upon its release, the zombie western was a critical and commercial hit, the likes of which were impressive even for Naughty Dog, the studio that broke ground with past hits such as Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, and the Uncharted series before making its 2013 smash hit. The wide success of the first game made The Last of Us 2 one of the most anticipated releases since Grand Theft Auto 5. Fans were anxiously awaiting the next chapter of Ellie and Joel's story following the cliffhanger ending of the first installment, and with the duo set to take on the crazy zombie world once again, fans were clamoring for the game's release. When trailers and promo first dropped, it became clear the game was going to focus more on Ellie, who is now an adult, as she finally took control of her own story. While we thought it was going to be Ellie's story, the game ended up being interested in more than just Ellie. Not to get all philosophical, but both games are trying to tell a story about karma and the roles our actions play in dictating the situations we ultimately encounter in life. What you reap is what you sow. In the world of The Last of Us, karma comes for people who are selfish and act in contrast to what would be best for the collective good. Essentially, the world is based in the philosophy of utilitarianism. Okay, so that was a lot of abstract wording. Let's break this down a little bit. Hello, I'm Timon Lyander, and this is a thought bubble on the utilitarian nightmare that is The Last of Us. And spoilers ahead for both The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. Okay, boys and girls, first let's tackle utilitarianism. Utilitarianism was popularized in the modern day by Jeremy Bentham, and according to the most basic definition of the word via a quick Google search, utilitarianism is the doctrine that actions are right if they are useful or for the benefit of the majority. What this really boils down to, essentially, is don't be a selfish prick and think about the greater good, comrade. Pretty straightforward. But just to give an example, say I have the only COVID-19 vaccine in the world, and I have enough to cure my ailing Mima. Good news, right? Not exactly, because if I don't give her the dose right now, she'll die, and if I do give her the dose, they won't have any more to replicate and humanity's doomed. A utilitarian would argue that the morally right thing to do would be to say, see ya, Mima, for the greater good of the world at large. At face value, this is a pretty logical way of thinking. One life versus the lives of potentially millions of people, the numbers speak for themselves. That being said, it's much easier to practice this philosophy in theoretical circumstances than it is to actually try and live by it in real life. It's almost like this exact situation happened in an extremely popular film franchise, and we all cheered because we were unaware that Homeboy doomed half of humanity to die because of his selfish decision.
We don't trade lives, Vision.
Bruh.
So, you might be thinking, how does this all relate to The Last of Us 2? As a quick refresher, our pals Ellie and Joel are now living in Jackson, this town run by Joel's brother Tommy, and all seems fine and dandy in this horrifying apocalypse, except for the fact that Joel and Ellie's relationship has seen better days. Fast forward and we find out that Joel didn't end the whole Firefly bloodline, making for a super messed up origin story, and ultimately leading to his death. Yeah, Joel gets got, like straight murdered. After watching her father figure brutally killed up close and personal, Ellie is let go by Abby, the girl who killed Joel, and makes her way back to Jackson. Fast forward again! Ellie and her new bae Dima go to get revenge on the assholes who killed Joel. After a series of brutal events, Ellie finally has her long-awaited encounter with Abby. Then, hold up, Twilight Zone? We're Abby now? Yay! And everyone was so happy! Just to put it on the record, I enjoyed this section of the game. I think fans were kind of tweaking. It was a little weird at first, but overall I was with it, and I really ended up enjoying what they did here. Anyway, we follow Abby on her own tale as she tries to help Lev and Yara escape their nutty cult, just to end up with all of her friends getting mysteriously picked off one by one. We cut back to present day, where Abby decides to spare Ellie and Dima's lives after some convincing from Lev. The two of them walk off, Ellie and the crew head back to Jackson, and that's it. That's the game. Ellie and Dima settle down Thanos style in their cute cottagecore ranch, and they all lived happily ever after. Psych! After some convincing from a down bad Tommy, and some mighty rough PTSD flashbacks, Ellie embarks on one last quest to avenge Joel, ending with her and Abby both critically wounded. With a knife plunged into Abby's heart, Ellie decides to let both Abby and Lev go. conclude with Ellie arriving back home, having seemingly lost everything, though it's clear that she has found a true sense of peace that she was lacking when the game began. And that's it. That's the end. The Last of Us 2, everybody. Let's get a round of applause. At this point, I'm sure you all know The Last of Us 2 had quite a mixed reception. While all of us here love the game, many people downright hated it. While many gamers disliked the game for a slew of stupid, sexist, and homophobic reasons, one valid criticism that I kept seeing when looking at reviews and reactions is that the ending was less than satisfactory. I mean, shit. On the cover of the game, it literally says, "Watch Ellie take revenge," just for her to let the woman who killed Joel go. I'm not gonna lie, the decision to have Ellie spare Abby's life caught me off guard at first. While I ultimately liked the decision and thought it was the best possible way to end the game's arc, the seemingly jarring switch in Ellie's character was a bit surprising at first. Like we said earlier, we literally saw Ellie kill everybody who was involved in Joel's murder. So it makes sense that people would be dissatisfied with the way the game ended. It's like if at the end of Django Unchained, Django let Samuel Jackson's character go instead of offing him like he fucking deserved.
Django! You uppity son of a...
If you're looking for that kind of satisfaction, it makes sense that you might feel like this ending sucked, didn't make sense, or was just a bit disappointing. If The Last of Us 2 was its own contained story, I might have agreed with you. But it's not. It's The Last of Us 2 for a reason. So in order for us to understand what the storytellers at Naughty Dog were trying to do, we have to go back to the events that kickstarted this game. Specifically, Joel's murder spree at the end of the first installment. Now, at the end of the last game, Joel was presented with an impossible decision. After traversing his way to the Firefly Hospital with the literal last hope of humanity, Joel had to make a choice. Does he let the girl who has come to fill the role of his daughter die to save the fate of the world? Or does he sneak away with her in a sly and peaceful kind of way? Since we're talking about the game's sequel, we know what decision Joel made, but the predicament he was faced with sounds pretty familiar to our Meemaw situation from earlier. Joel fails this test miserably, and in the end, loses the thing that's most important to him. No, not his life.
Joel, please get up! No!
Okay, well, yeah, his life, but something even more important to him. His relationship with Ellie is never the same. Seeing how Joel's selfish actions came back around to bite him in the butt, and Ellie watched this entire arc unfold, does it really come as a surprise that she wanted to end the cycle of revenge and try to find a more peaceful solution? Not convinced yet? Okay, we've seen how being a selfish prick worked out for Joel. So let's check in on our friend Abby. When Abby makes her decision to go after Joel, it's against what's best for all the people around her at the time. Through a series of flashbacks, we find out that Abby let revenge consume her, ultimately leading her to drag her friends on a hunt to brutally murder Joel, and I mean brutal even by the standards of this world. In her quest for revenge, Abby led everyone she loves to their deaths, and no matter how much she tries to atone or fight for the greater good, that's something she'll have to live with for the rest of her life. Sounds pretty awful, right? This is another example of a character in the world of The Last of Us putting their own personal wants over the needs of others, and karma coming around to bite them where the sun don't shine. Still not convinced? It's time for the lightning round. Tommy leaves to search for Abby even before Ellie does. I know what you're thinking. Joel was his brother. It's not that bad that he left.
Wrong!
This man is responsible for an entire town, and he just up and dipped, causing him to lose his wife, his leg, and even his eye. Next, Dima leaves with Ellie on her quest for revenge, and while when she makes the decision to leave, we don't know that she's putting anyone's life at risk, we later find out that she's pregnant and was endangering her child the entire time. She also causes the death of the father of her child, as Jesse would have never came if Dima hadn't left with Ellie. I'm sure if we go through every significant character in the series, we'd be able to find plenty more examples of karma coming back around for those who fall victim to their selfish urges. So, how about we get back to our good old pal Ellie and wrap this thing up. Ellie throughout the game is constantly putting her quest for revenge over the collective good of the people she cares about. Dima's pregnant? Too bad, it's still hunting season. Jesse needs help trying to find Tommy? Sorry, Abby's so close. Settle down with my crazy hot girlfriend? I must get revenge! Time and time again, Ellie puts her own personal satisfaction over the wishes and well-being of those she cares about. As a result, she not only experiences a level of trauma I hope no one ever has to go through, But despite being with someone who truly loves her, she still feels empty and lacking the closure that she desperately needed the entire game. It isn't until she forgives Abby and lets her and Lev go that she's truly able to find the peace she's been looking for. She did what a utilitarian would say is the right thing to do given the circumstance, and as a result, she gets some inner peace. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking. She needed to forgive Abby? There's no way that's the point of this story. And I mean, I feel you on that, but the game developers made things pretty clear during the final fight between Abby and Ellie. We have a scene between Ellie and Joel where Ellie lets him know that she hasn't quite forgiven him for the actions he took at the end of the last game. Remember, Ellie wanted her life to have meaning. It was one of the things that defined her character the most throughout the first game. She didn't care about survival, she cared about having an impact. In one of the most powerful scenes in any video game, Ellie explains to Joel that taking this away from her is something that she may never be able to forgive him for, but that she was willing to try. This moment between the two was the last meaningful one they had with each other, and sadly, Ellie never got to the place where she could forgive Joel while he was alive. And while The Last of Us 2 tries to get us to think the story is about Ellie getting closure on Joel's death, it's really about her getting closure on her and Joel's relationship. You know how they say forgiveness isn't about the other person and it's really about yourself? This is the perfect example. Ellie forgives Abby as a placeholder for forgiving Joel. She was never able to forgive Joel when he was alive. She wasn't yet capable of forgiveness, but in that moment, through her forgiveness of Abby, someone who took someone away from her that was extremely important to her, she was finally able to forgive Joel for taking away her choice at the end of the last game. See, now when you put it that way, isn't the story pretty damn good? Kind of a perfect way to end her arc. We watch her transform multiple times throughout the game, and we get to see what she could have been if her choices were different through the stories of the other characters in the game. It's pretty genius and great storytelling. While revenge might have been cathartic for the audience, it would have left Ellie feeling the same as she did throughout the entire game. It would have been criminal for a character-driven story like The Last of Us 2 not to make the decision that's best for the character. Things had to be done this way, even if it means that the gamers didn't quite get what they wanted. And low-key, what else do you want? Again, Ellie went on an epic murder spree, but I digress. The Last of Us series, and specifically The Last of Us 2, craft a brilliant tale about forgiveness and revenge by setting up a world whose logic is based in utilitarian thought. Games are a reflection of their developers, and the creators of The Last of Us, in my opinion, set out to make a world where those who act selfishly got what they deserved. Karma in this case is actually the game developers themselves. It's why a beloved character like Joel died. Ultimately, he lived by a selfish code, and in the end, his actions led to his demise. Same goes for Abby, Tommy, and Dima. But not Ellie. While seemingly losing everything at the end, Joel, Dima, her fingies, Ellie is ultimately able to find a sense of peace that she hasn't known for years. And that only happened because she was able to go full utilitarian and put what was best for others over herself and learn about the healing power of forgiveness. If you're someone who didn't like the game, I encourage you to play through it again with all of this in mind. If you still don't like it, fair. Not every game is made for everyone. But The Last of Us 2 is one of the best games to come out this decade. And whether you like it or not, it's reset the standard for games moving forward, for better or worse. And while it still has yet to be seen whether or not there will be a Last of Us 3, on behalf of all of us at the Next Wave, we can't wait to see where Naughty Dog's zombie epic takes us next. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with the latest from us, and follow The Next Wave on all platforms, at The Next Wave Shy, that's at The Next Wave CHI. I'm Timon Lyander, and we'll see you guys next time.